All right, so I wanted to start with a discussion of run-on sentences because this is a fairly common mistake that I've been seeing in a lot of the essays and rough drafts that I've been looking at. And so I wanted to just go over that a little bit first. So now a run-on sentence is, in summary, it's just two complete sentences that are improperly linked. So basically, it's a run-on sentence if you can find two complete sentences within a single sentence and they aren't connected correctly. There's actually two different types of run-on sentences, and we're going to talk about each one. So the first one is a comma splice. This is a run-on sentence that includes a comma. This is a really common type of run-on because the comma creates this automatic kind of like pause in the sentence, and so sometimes it can be kind of misleading and make the writer think, oh, this isn't a run-on sentence because I created that comma, to build in a pause. Also, a lot of times people are under the misconception that a comma can fix a run-on sentence, but it actually can't. So let's look at an example. We went to the movies, comma, it was fun. So this is a comma splice because it has two complete sentences in it, and they're only separated by a comma, which, as I said, does not fix a run-on sentence, right? So we went to the movies is a complete sentence. It was fun is a complete sentence, right? So if we put them together and we just separate them with a comma, it creates a comma splice. Another example would be the car wouldn't start, comma, we were stuck, right? So again, you can kind of break it down. The car wouldn't start, that's a complete sentence, right? We were stuck, also a complete sentence, right? Each of those stands alone, and they're only separated by a comma, creating a comma splice. All right, so the thing to remember about this is that, the comma creates that pause, so many people assume that commas prevent run-ons. All right, so if you take nothing else from this video, just remember that commas cannot fix run-on sentences. This is a really important rule to remember because, if someone says, oh, that's a run-on, and you say, oh, I know how to fix it, I'll just stick a comma in there, it's still going to be a run-on. It's just going to be a different type of run-on sentence. All right, so the other type is called a fused sentence. Okay, this is a run-on sentence that doesn't contain a comma. This is maybe a little bit easier to identify because it doesn't have that pause in it, right? So for example, I hope you like the present I picked it just for you. You might look at that and think, something's not right there, right? Because it doesn't have that comma breaking up the sentence and kind of tricking us into thinking maybe it's not a run-on, right? So if you look at it, you can find two complete sentences, right? I hope you like the present. Complete sentence, right? It stands alone. I picked it just for you. Also a complete sentence. It stands alone, right? So we have shoved them together into one single sentence, making a run-on sentence. And again, this type of run-on is called a fused sentence. All right, second example is I read a book, I fell asleep. I read a book, complete sentence. I fell asleep, complete sentence. Put them together, creates a run-on sentence. All right. Now, it's not super important that you remember the difference between a comma splice and a fused sentence, so long as you remember the rule that, any two complete sentences put into one single sentence, either not separated at all or just separated by a comma, is going to create a run-on sentence. All right, so now the important thing is knowing not just how to identify them, but also how to solve them. All right, there are three ways that you can solve a run-on. You can use a period, a semicolon, and a conjunction. All right, so let's start with the simplest one first. Solutions using a period. We went to the movies, period. It was fun. I hope you like the present, period. I picked it just for you, right? So it just made each of these complete sentences its own standalone sentence by putting a period after each complete sentence. That is probably the simplest, most kind of foolproof way to fix it, right? When in doubt, fix it using a period. That will always be correct. All right, so solutions using a period, that's the simplest. Next, solutions using a semicolon. This can be a really helpful way to correct a run-on sentence. It's just important to know when to use a semicolon. So here we have, we went to the movies, semicolon, it was fun, right? So technically they're still part of the same sentence, but when you use a semicolon, you can have a complete sentence on both sides of the semicolon, right? We went to the movies, it was fun, both complete sentences separated by a semicolon makes it okay. I hope you like the present, semicolon, I picked it just for you. Again, you look at either side of the semicolon, both sides are complete sentences, but the semicolon makes that okay. So when can you use a semicolon? You only use it when two complete sentences are closely related. Okay, so if two sentences are really closely related, that's a great time to use a semicolon. Okay, we went to the beach, semicolon, the ocean was at high tide. Right, so we went to the beach is a complete sentence. The ocean was at high tide is a complete sentence, but that second part is basically a continuation of the first part. So that works well. Incorrect use of a semicolon would be, we went to the beach, semicolon, I have a lot of homework to do tonight. Those are not closely related, right? That is not a logical place to use a semicolon. So basically, what you want to remember, the rule of thumb for the semicolon is, complete sentence on both sides of it, right? And then only when the two sentences are very closely related, right? So often if you have a run-on sentence, chances are both of the complete sentences that you put in there are going to be closely related, right? They're related enough that you decided to make them one sentence. So almost always the semicolon trick will work. All right, remember that a semicolon is used a lot like a period, right? It should only be used to separate two complete sentences. All right, I loved that movie, semicolon, and I enjoyed the book too. That's not going to work, right? Because and I enjoyed the book too is not a complete sentence, right? So both sides of that semicolon need to be complete. I loved that movie, semicolon, I enjoyed the book too. All right, so though that works because both sides of the semicolon have complete sentences. All right, and then there's solutions using a conjunction. All right, a conjunction is a connecting word. For example, you can say, we went to the movies and it was fun, right? That's what we call a coordinating conjunction. That's the fanboys, right? For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so might be the way that you learned them. There's also something called subordinate conjunctions. Those are other connecting words, right? You don't have to worry too much about those technical terms right now. The main thing is to remember that you can correct run-on sentences using a conjunction so long as you choose the correct conjunction, right? So the conjunction in both of these examples makes sense, right? A conjunction isn't always going to be the correct solution, right? It has to make sense in context, right? You're not just going to throw a random conjunction in there to connect two sentences, right? So sometimes a conjunction will make sense, sometimes it won't. If your run-on sentence is very long, a lot of times it's a good idea to break it up into multiple sentences rather than trying to string it all together using a conjunction. So the only solution that will always 100% work is a period. All right. Okay, so quick review. What is the difference between a comma splice and a fused sentence? A comma splice is a run-on that separates two complete sentences using a comma. A fused sentence is a run-on sentence that doesn't have any punctuation. How can you fix a run-on sentence? You can use a period, that'll always work, a semicolon when the two complete sentences are very closely related, or you can use a conjunction, which is a connecting word to connect the two complete sentences if there's a conjunction that makes sense in context. Can a comma ever fix a run-on? Absolutely not. A comma will never fix a run-on. When should a semicolon be used? When the two sentences are very, very closely related. When the second sentence is essentially a continuation of the first, but both are complete sentences. All right, and that is it for run-on sentences. So the next one I'm going to do is fragments, and that will be on a separate recording. So please make sure to watch that one as well.